If you're a fan of horror comedies like Happy Death Day and Freaky, you might want to check out the new Prime Video time travel slasher, Totally Killer. Kiernan Shipka travels back to the 80s to stop a serial killer from wreaking havoc on her life in the present. 35 years after the shocking murder of three teens, the infamous Sweet 16 killer returns on Halloween night to claim a fourth victim. When 17-year-old Jamie ignores her overprotective mom's warnings and comes face to face with the masked maniac, she accidentally time travels back to 1987, the year of the original killings. Forced to navigate the unfamiliar and outrageous culture of the 80s, Jamie teams up with her teen mom to take down the killer once and for all before she's stuck in the past forever. This is directed by Maniac, who also directed one of my favorite rom-coms, Always Be My Maybe. Here, she aptly captures the vibe, atmosphere, and the fluorescent colors of the 80s, being sure to take advantage of calling out how problematic a lot of the attitudes and behaviors of that decade were when viewed through today's lens. Now, in addition to Kiernan Shipka, this stars Olivia Holt, Kelsey Moema, Troy Leanne Johnson, and Julie Bowen. Now, Shipka, she is wonderful in this, just capturing the shock and consternation of encountering the misogynistic and chauvinistic mindsets that were prevalent and widely accepted in the zeitgeist. Now, there are more than a handful of times when Shipka's facial expressions and snarky quips just lead to chuckles and laughs. I mean, her timing is impeccable and it's natural, convincingly coming across as spur of the moment rather than just a scripting decision. Now, with some of the other cast, they all work well together, creating a close-knit, mean girl sort of clique. The dynamics, they're biting and rude, but also funny in an off-kilter sort of way. Randall Park has a small role in this, but I loved the dismissive attitude that he approaches Shipka with. Their interactions work to provide just a little bit of social commentary, illustrating arrogance that still rears its head today when it comes to people of authority. Now, Olivia Holt plays the young version of Shipka's mom, and at first, she has a lot in common with Regina George, also making her a character that's easy to dislike, which also it contrasts nicely with how we see Julie Bowen behave as the present version of Shipka's mom. Now, I appreciate that we get to watch natural character growth with the younger version, showing us genuine maturity that slowly begins to align with how we first meet the older version. Troy Leanne Johnson portrays Shipka's best friend's mom in the past. Following that, well, they have a great working relationship, also showcasing how intelligent the character is and how that ingenuity influenced her daughter in the present. I also like that while things are going on in the past, there are also efforts in the present that are being carried out, creating a parallel that keeps the momentum progressing while also showing us any wonkiness to the timeline that might ensue due to changes that are taking place in the past. Now, for the mystery portion of this story, it is pretty well obscured to create doubt about who the killer actually is. I think there's some hints, but they're not overtly obvious, so you may guess wrong like I did. Now, as a MacGuffin within the story, there's a podcast in the present that details out information on the killings within the past. Now, this is what Shipka uses as her guide to hopefully catch the killer and then change some unfortunate events in her present. But like the butterfly effect, changes to the past also change the future, and this leads to clever and unexpected complications for the plot. Storytelling is quick, containing very little downtime, instead choosing to keep an urgent pace that matches Shipka's race against time. And I love, too, that this doesn't overstay its welcome. I mean, it's an hour and 46 minutes, balancing suspense, tension, comedy, and then gore in a captivating manner. And thankfully, this also takes advantage of its R rating to just include some exciting violence that helps keep this seated in the slasher comedy genre. The kills themselves, they're not terribly unique or novel, but they can be satisfying and effective. I loved the production value, taking full advantage of the fluorescent colored clothing, spectacular soundtrack, and the lack of modern technology. Some of the dialogue uses today's lingo in the past and it's not uttered by Shipka, so that separation at times isn't perfect, but it's certainly forgivable and not really too much of an issue at all. Now, this isn't the first time that we've been presented with time travel movies where a character is working to save their present by making changes in the past. And it's also not the first time that the theme of murder or horror is used to tell the story. But what makes this feel fresh and new is the approach. Basically, taking elements from other stories that worked well, combining them with a punchy script, and then expanding on them. Take the podcast angle I'd mentioned. This works to not only inform character movements and decisions, but it also provides the needed context for us as the audience so that background and exposition are delivered naturally as a course of the storytelling rather than stopping down to explain something or diving into massive flashbacks. I also appreciate that there's a tangible sci fi element to what's going on. I mean, there's a clearly defined mechanism that allows Shipka to go back into the past, and this doesn't rely on supernatural or unexplained phenomena. And even though it is fantastical, it also feels grounded. I also really like the twists that continue to pop up within the narrative. These are unexpected, even for the characters, so it allows for increasing complications that require constant course corrections to adapt. Now, I ended up having a lot of fun with this movie. The intelligent comedy and snarky retorts, they work. The violence is brutal and gory, and the mystery is convoluted enough to keep it intriguing and not too obvious. Then, with all of this combined with a lead character that is both dynamic and engaging, the story comes together to deliver an amusingly exciting slasher. Kiernan Shipka embodies a charismatic pseudo-final girl full of wit, smarts, and determination. Nanachka Khan skillfully navigates the difficulties inherent in telling a time travel tale, while also inserting horror and comedic elements to all complement each other rather than create a distracting and confusing mess. There's no sex or nudity, a lot of profanity, and a bunch of violence. I give Totally Killer 4.5 out of 5 couches. And this was just a lot of fun and something that I'm going to watch whenever I need something quick and clever. Are you a fan of horror comedies? Do you have a favorite? Now, one of my all-time faves is Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, but I would love to hear what you love in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.